Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Ion Canon Podcast, your home on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network for in-depth discussion on lore, the High Republic, and the whole canon of the galaxy far, far away. My name is Matthew, and I am joined across the continent by your friend of mine, Mr. Joel Davis. Joel, how are you doing this week?
Well, after this weekend, all I can say is because we did Star Trek last time. Thrawn! Thrawn! I hope everyone got that if you're a Star Trek fan.
Definitely. Yeah, good timing, since we talked about Thrawn and Federation Empire last week. This week we are talking about The Bad Batch Season 2. It was great. We look back on the season as a whole, probably make some speculation about Season 3, not beyond. And oh yeah, there was this thing in London that happened, which we'll touch on too a little bit. To help us out, you can see him on the YouTube right now. It's friend of the pod, Omar. How you doing, Omar? Welcome back.
Hey there, everybody. It's Omar, the negotiator. So happy to be back on the podcast. And gosh, my brain is just full of Star Wars right now. It's just scrambled up into mush of different thoughts and ideas and theories, and just what a good time to be a Star Wars fan, you know?
That's sorry, good.
No, it's wonderful. That's it.
Yeah, that is certainly true. What a good time to be a paper cannon fan. What a good time to be a Star Wars fan overall. Get the plugs out of the way off the top. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram, and you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Iron Cannon Pod. I'll mention what I meant by that a little bit later on. Yeah, Twitter and Instagram. Instagram's kind of a little dormant right now, but I'll keep on. I share a few reels here and there, whatnot. Tractor Beam comic book reviews. Comics come out Wednesday. Review ideally comes out Friday on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. This week I was way too busy with this other thing called Easter, and so yeah, that got bumped again. But yeah, hope next week hopefully I'll be back in the saddle. Check that out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, as well as every episode of the Iron Cannon podcast here again and on the Spotify and Apple Podcast feed. Joel, why don't you go for talk about membership, super chats, Discord, all that fun stuff?
Yes, first of all, you can follow us on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, link in the description. We will be hosting a game night, not this week, but next week. We are voting right now. What are we going to play? If you want to send us a little money, send a super chat. We will read your comment. But we'll try to read your comment anyway without the super chat because we're nice that way. And of course, you can always follow us at the Ion Cannon Pod Twitter, where we tweet things, sometimes things that gets us in trouble with copyright lawyers, and also big threads about those things that get us in trouble with copyright lawyers.
There we go. Well, again, we'll mention that in a second. So yeah, let's dive right into it. Sorry, guys, I'm a bit under the weather. Getting there, getting back together here.
Sadly, not con crud.
Not con crud, because it was like
Yeah.
Easter Holy Week crowd. Yeah, so we're going to talk about Bad Batch. So the only Ion screen we'll talk about is Mandalorian Chapter 22, Guns for Hire. I'll just say I love this episode so much, and then I'll let Joel and Omar jump in. Omar, what did you think of this latest episode, Guns for Hire?
It wasn't my favorite of the season.
It's actually pretty common.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation online, of course. For me, I have loved season 3 so far. I feel like I've kind of pushed against the grain and a lot of conversations online that say there's not really a focus to the season.
Mm-hmm.
I think there is. It's very much about the Mandalorian people. It's very much about like Bo and Din and getting back to Mandalore and taking the people and kind of unifying all of Mandalorians. That's my opinion. And just the season has been really strong for me so far. Yeah, this episode, I don't know. It didn't click with me. I think it really wanted to do this buddy cop narrative. And in doing so, it kind of regressed a few things like Din's, like in terms of his relationship with droids. Like I thought that was kind of established that he was a little better if it just felt like a little bit of a step backwards for that character. But I will say, when I turned my brain into like, okay, this is obviously like just a buddy cop kind of thing, I had fun. It was a fun episode. So while not my favorite, just the long and short of it is I enjoyed it. So
Joel, what's your take? I know you tend to have thoughts.
Yeah, I think I agree more with Omar. This was a fun episode, and kind of in kind of this little bubble that had Jack Black and Lizzo. Lizzo, is it Lizzo or Rizzo?
Yeah, Lizzo. Yeah. Mhm.
Oh, okay, thank you. Want to make sure I get that right. So that's cool. And Christopher Lloyd, Doc Brown, and a Count Dooku mention, which I
Oh, yeah.
always
That was
appreciate.
cool. That was awesome.
Dooku was a visionary.
He was a visionary.
I mean,
Love
I
it.
like that. I always like it when people we kind of think we had an audience forget, because it's like, oh yeah, he's kind of like he's just seen by some people the same way Moth is probably seen by people. Like, oh yeah, he's the great political visionary instead of the usual mustache twirly Christopher Lee, that we all know and love. But yeah, I think my issues from this season have been kind of like, I always feel like the conflict gets a little too easily resolved. Like, it's sort of like, oh, we're here to find the Mandalorians. It's like there's not much talk about, hey, Bo, you're with the crazy helmet people. There's a little bit of that where they're like, oh, Dan, he doesn't have the blood of the Mandalorian, not born of the houses. But then it's sort of like, oh, Bo's got the Darksaber again. Like, I don't mind she had the Darksaber. I always kind of thought she was going to get that regardless, but it just seems a little easy, and it's sort of like, well, we're kind of going on, and I hate using this because it's like Elder One logic, but at least like, oh, well, you see, she's defeated, he are defeated, and she defeated the person who defeated me.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's just Din trying to use a loophole because he thought of one, and he didn't want to fight her.
Yeah, that I very much agree. I felt like, while I think Bo was always going to get the Darksaber, I always felt like there might have been like some kind of duel between Din and Bo that would have led to like a really dramatic showdown, but not to one where like they're against each other, but one where they realize they have to work with each other to unite all people. So,
yeah, and I'm still hoping that someone calls out the armorer for her kind of BSing with the helmet rules.
It's gonna be pause. It's gonna be
I
pause.
hope so. I hope someone does. I feel like some of the conflict stuff has been a little bit, but that's just a seasonal issue overall. But as an episode itself, like, I love the world. Bryce Dallas Howard killing it with the effects and shots and whatnot. It's just cool to see battle droids again, and again, it's like the most Star Warsy political system ever. We are direct democracy, and we're the former monarchs.
So funny.
That is very Georgie. Lucas.
Yeah, and speaking of that, it was a very Attack of the Clones episode, I feel. Just the whole mystery aspect and just really doubling down on that genre. That was fun.
Including Count Dooku being a visionary, guys. I mean,
exactly. So, probably not my favorite episode of the season, but, it's certainly not in, like, the worst thing ever in terms of just... Maybe it's just its placement could have been a little different, and maybe we could have talked a little bit more about the conflict, but overall, I thought it was fun.
So I'm going to come in hot here with my incendiary take.
Do it.
It's Monday. This was Wednesday. I think it may be my favorite episode of the series, the whole darn series. I'm not kidding either. I don't know. I mean, so a bit of context. I love Attack of the Clones truly deeply. I loved AP5 singing out in space. I know people thought it was ridiculous. Look, Star Wars. 20 minutes into the first Star Wars thing we see, Luke and Obi-Wan go into a bar. It's a joke. And see all these sort of random creatures that you've never seen before, real goggly eyes and long snouts, and playing these weird instruments. And this guy looks like a walrus. He tries to threaten Luke, and Obi-Wan chops his arm off. And Star Wars has always been ridiculous, always. And I love how this episode leaned into that so much. The Bo-Katan with the Darksaber thing, my mind goes to the fact that this whole season is about the transformation of symbol when there's a new circumstance in the community. So the fact that, especially in this is what everything with the masks and the armor about. I think I've talked about this, I think a few weeks ago, maybe last week. That being if you look at it from the inside, being sympathetic to the Children of the Watch, they were so strict with the rules because everyone was in exile. They were exiled on Concord Dawn, and then I have 1,000 Tears, and they're exiled on Navarro, and in this in the basement on Navarro. And it's people hunker down and hunker in, close in, to try and maintain some sort of cohesion and community in the midst of crisis. That we can question that. I'm not saying that's necessarily unquestionable or above reproach, but to me, what I was looking for, I was actually frankly looking for the fact that the Darksaber did not even matter at all. That the fact that she saw a mythosaur, the fact might have been something with the armor. I still think that's something there. The fact that she's Bo-Katan Kryze and has walked both worlds and can unite all people of Mandalore under her banner, if she is also willing to gather good people to her, such as Din Djarin, of course, probably such as the armor, such as Axwolves and that group there. So I really didn't mind it. I actually got goosebumps. This episode really, it is Attack of the Clones. It did lean into a lot of the Rebels, that moment in Rebels with when the last time she had the Darksaber. Clearly, of course, there needed some redemption there because the story itself behind her getting the Darksaber wasn't one that would inspire. This might be a story that inspires because of the circumstance that the Mandalorian people need inspiration to unite and come together and retake the planet. And so, that's the thing about a myth, is that it is malleable and it is able to adapt to circumstances. So that's my take. I didn't mind it. I don't know if you guys have any further thoughts on the episode.
Yeah, we got 2 more episodes to go. We still haven't seen the finale. It can all kind of nicely culminate into something. Be careful out there, folks. The season episode 7 spoilers are out there. We won't talk about them.
No, I haven't even seen
I
them.
won't even see them.
I haven't even seen them. I'm pretty open when it comes to the opinion of spoilers, but when it comes to something that we're going to be getting really soon, I'm definitely going to wait.
2 days from now.
Yeah, exactly. But Matthew, though, you did touch upon something that I completely agree with, and that I do feel like the Children of the Watch, I don't know, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not they are portrayed as like the good guys or if they're portrayed as the cult that needs to be overcome. More and more, I'm thinking it's more on the good guys side of things. And I think what really cemented that was the whole Bo-Katan of 2 worlds. That just tells me like they're open. They're open to different walks of Mandalorians coming together so long as they're unified. So I think that was a very good point, and I think we're going to see more of that. So yeah,
I do too. And for me, I always wonder. I say this every single time when people see a weird religious group. Some of that is an accurate consideration. When people critique it, I think, especially, I think there's a lot of projection going on, frankly. But there's it's fiction. There's always projection. That's how this works. But anyway. So good thoughts. So there was this thing in London that happened. Sort of Celebration Europe. We're gonna go into London calling. We're gonna go into all the paper news, all the other news, whatever, over the next few weeks. But for now, we'll talk about one big thing. And the big thing I'll start off is, in my notes, I just got, this is basically what it looks like in my notes here. Vern Renestro is showing up in the Acolyte. There was a photo that got leaked, snapped. I put it up. Everyone and their mom put it up online. And Disney, I guess we're big enough potatoes now for Disney to care that we have that up. So
on their radar.
So they flagged that. But whatever. That was. I'm honored to have been flagged by Disney. It's a badge of courage, right? It's a rite of passage. She's showing up in this show, and why that's so darn significant. Well, first of all, the news itself isn't a leak. Twitter, Star Wars on Twitter put out this tweet: recognizing our mistakes and doing better is the path of the Jedi, a path of a Jedi. Rebecca Henderson is Vernestra Rowe in the Acolyte, an upcoming series coming to Disney Plus 2024. And that, and combined with, not combined with, but is part of what Leslie Headland is talking about. What I had hoped for so deeply with the series is that it would connect more deeply, more fully with the publishing initiative, with everything they've laid down in books and comics. And I don't know, Joel, I do hear your point. You've said a lot is it may not be so direct or exact, but you know, I think we all agree this is really huge, really
Mm.
great. I'm a lot, especially what Leslie Headland has been saying about how this is very much in part indebted. And the reason I raised Vernestra for that, I took to Twitter and did a Joel style thread there. Is it's going to be character continuity, character of, you know, this line, recognize her mistakes and doing better. That is Vern's arc. You know, she in phase one, she's a 16-year-old kid who's knighted way too soon for at least later standards, given so much responsibility. She even has a Padawan of her own at this point, and she's 16 with that much responsibility. She's a prodigy. She is capable, but she really thinks she has it all figured out. She really thinks the way a lot of teenagers do, a lot of adolescents do, and you know, just, you know, Ireland especially, and everyone who's written her has written her really well, in that we're supposed to see the flaw of that. We're supposed to see, are you sure about that kid? You know, you being so arrogant and certain. And this tweet really suggests that as she grows up, she sees the failure, and she failed. I mean, that's how life works. You fail at things, and her and that her certainty is going to lead her to mistakes. Well, it's similar to Barash Sylvain in the Blade in phase two. So that excites me. I'm just so happy for this show to come out. I mean, if we were going to consider here on Iron Canada of giving it the podcast area treatment before, you better believe we are going to devote the whole chunk of episodes while this show is going through each episode, and it's all going to be one big guys on screen, because we are the home for High Republic on the Underworld Network. Joel, Omar, your thoughts on Vern, on Acolyte connecting with everything?
Yeah, I'll go first. Yeah, this is really exciting. You know, I was always, you know, I always like to temper any expectations about how much these things are going to connect. You know, just in case. You know, it's not the first time though. I mean, there is precedent for this. We had Cobb Vance in the act and in Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like what? But
Yeah. And Chris Anton in Book of Boba Fett.
Becky Cranston, you know, Fortress Inquisitorius in Obi-Wan. So there has been, you know, paper to screen jumping before. So this kind of continues that in a way. And it's really cool to see Vernestra of all characters appear. I honestly now I just kind of wonder, how old is she? Like, when is this supposed to take place? Is she like just in her 40s? And so this is actually a lot closer to the books than I thought, or does her species live a long life and now she's like a 400 or a couple hundred years old?
I mean, I think it's supposed to be set.
Was it
wait,
years?
So I'm just trying to think here.
Or it could be
yeah, you said 100, and so 100 years later from
okay, so she's older.
from phase one. So who knows? I meant to look up the Wikipedia to see other Mary Allens and how long they live. So
we got Barris and Luminara. I don't know how old they are.
Right.
Well, she's also bald now, apparently. That was what staggered me, like, oh, her ponytail.
Yeah, her purple hair. Maybe we'll see the light whip though. That'd be cool. So,
that'd be
anyway,
cool.
sorry,
but no, this is really cool, and I do think Leslie Headland definitely, when it sounds like she's very much someone who lives and breathes Star Wars, and so it's nice to see her, you know, very much bring a character into the story. Obviously, you talk about character continuity. You know, I wonder how they'll write her in sense of, you know, you shouldn't have to read all the books to know who Venestra is. She should be, here's a character, her name is Venestra. Hardcore fans are like, I know who that is, and then the newer people are like, ooh, cool, bold alien lady. And then what her I do wonder what her I wonder what her life has been like, and wonder what she has failed at. What happened to our spunky little Jedi Knight master? So you know, I'm very excited. This is very good, and I'm just very happy to see this connection. And what other deeper connections? Like, will the Nile get mentioned? Will Marcion Rogue get? Will he be in the show? Who knows? Maybe he won't be dead by the end of phase 3. I don't know. But yeah, this is exciting news, and just continues my hype for Acolyte.
I will say, I mean, she's not the main character. We don't know how much of a role she'll have. She might just have a small cameo, or it might be like, I mean, it's making me think of Ahsoka in Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, where you know, you don't necessarily have to have watched the animated series, but it definitely helps to know why, especially when Ahsoka's talking about Anakin on that planet there in Mandalorian. So maybe something similar, right? Just to have a sense of what she's like in her younger years. Omar, yeah, I don't know if if you have any thoughts on this Acolyte news.
Well, just the only thing is, yeah, this is a great example of transmedia storytelling and just the whole world of adapting a character from the page onto the screen, and I think it's great. I love that Star Wars is doing it. Yeah, I'm not as familiar with the High Republic as a lot of you guys are, so. But still, it's an exciting thing, and it's something that I once they said that the Acolyte was going to be at the tail end of the High Republic, I figured there was going to be some really great service there.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is great.
Yeah. One last thing I'll say, Vernestra, because this whole arrogant, self-assured teenager thing, actually, definitely one of the most compelling characters, most interesting characters of the High Republic, I would say. So,
What is her species name again?
she's Mary Allen. Same
Okay,
as
so
Barriss
same as
and,
Barriss. That
Numenera,
just
yeah.
that got me thinking
Yeah.
about potential Barriss stories in the future. So
Yeah, you never
that's
know.
cool. Anyway,
All right, Joel, what is your one thing from Star Wars Celebration Europe?
Yeah, I'll take the kind of the obvious one, the movie announcements. This one in particular, these announcements in particular, I thought were really interesting compared to previous announcements. The biggest reason for that, honestly, and I brought this up many times on threads and what is, the fact that they're telling us what these movies are about. So often, I think maybe Rogue Squadron, probably with the exception, maybe. It was always, Taika Waititi doing a movie. What's it about? Ryan Johnson, they're giving him a movie trilogy. What's it about?
I mean, are
eventually,
they?
you know.
Are
I don't know, man.
they?
I don't know. Game of
Let's see,
Thrones dude's doing something. What's it about? I don't know. Here they actually said, they brought up, Shirimo Beichinoy. What's it really about? It's takes place 15 years after Rise of Skywalker. But it's gonna have Daisy Ridley. She seems already signed on, and it's gonna be about the next new Jedi Order. Holy moly! Obviously the Filoni. They announced Filoni's doing a movie. It's about the Mandoverse. I mean, that one was kind of a given. In hindsight, but it's good to know. And they then announced, James Mangold of Logan fame and hopefully Indy 5 fame is doing a Dawn of the Jedi movie. Takes
God.
place 25,000 years in the past, and it will be a biblical epic. Anything can happen, as I say, and I do agree with the Hannah Rayside rule of at least wait until you're in the theater, or at least the way I prefer wait until you see a trailer.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair. Yeah.
That's what
Once
the
you get-
actual practical rules, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But just the way they announced it, it makes the movies feel more tangible. Like a little, like, again, anything can happen. It's like more committed to a premise and an idea beyond just, oh, this creator's doing something for us one day. I don't know what's going to be out, maybe one day. But, like, I mean, they didn't give us dates for sure. And they, probably got to leave some stuff open just in case, like maybe Filoni can go first before a Shirimo Beichinoy movie. But, the fact that here are the premises of these three films, it's really exciting. And also the fact it's like past, present, future. Filoni's doing Mandoverse, Rey's story in the future, not 15 years in the future, and then going way back in time. I think that's cool just to continuing expanding the Star Wars universe and just pushing forward and by pushing back and pushing forward. So that gives me a little hope for these movie announcements, and I hope they all come to fruition. Again, anything can happen, but I just like the fact that we can talk about them in terms of like, what are they about? We have something to talk about now. I just did a podcast with Doc about what Ray's New Jedi Order can be about. So
I need to see
that's
that.
exciting.
Yeah, I mean, talk about films being in development, and we've heard that phrase. I mean, that's just what how Hollywood talks. We've heard that phrase for so many different projects, so much time. This is not just in development. This is a commitment to, like you're saying, something further along in development that they have the idea, the story idea. It's story ideas we've all been asking for. We've all been thinking about, wondering, things. The things have been in the air about these things, and for them to come out at Celebration, I am still very much an ardent supporter of the race head rule. 5 minutes to go in the theater with my bag of Mars bars, but yeah, this is definitely, you're right, Joel. It's a lot more further along than anything we've seen in the last number of years. Omar, what are your thoughts on these film announcements.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. This is my number one thing that I haven't stopped thinking about, specifically the Ray movie. Yeah, just the possibilities, the endless possibilities about what that could be, what the state of the galaxy is. Again, I have theory brain going off like max levels right now. And so it's something. It's something for us to chew on in the meantime. And it's something that, you know, God forbid it actually ends up happening. I want these movies to end up happening. And there is, as you say, something extremely solid about them going on stage and announcing Daisy Ridley, and as she walks up in the center stage to say, like, okay,
It's right there.
this is something. Finally, Star Wars movies can come back. And oh my God, I'm here for it. So yeah.
So so this might have been your one thing, but you got a mulligan there. What would be your one thing other than that to take away from
Okay,
Celebration?
yeah. Other than that, for sure. You know, I'm gonna cheat just a tiny bit because outside of all of these really great announcements that have been had, there's been a few things that have kind of gone under the radar. Kathleen Kennedy has been doing a number of interviews that have revealed very small tidbits, and if it's okay, I want to read a few of the things that that have come off. And like for one, it's some small things like Indy 5 is going to be 2 hours and 22 minutes. It's a fun little tidbit. Kathleen Kennedy was talking more about like a lot of the announced things with like Taika Waititi and the Lando Calrissian show. These are still on the table. She is very she is very excited for the prospect of Lando Calrissian, the show, still happening. So like a lot of the things that have been previously talked about are still on the table with Lucasfilm. And even Rogue Squadron, she says, hey, it could still happen. And it doesn't have to be a movie. It could be a series. The only thing that she did dispel was the Kevin Feige film, because that was something that apparently was more of a fandom thing. Like they heard rumors and then it kind of became big in the fandom world. And she says, look, we never really sat down and talked with Kevin Feige, but if he ever came up to her, she said, she's going to be all ears. So just, yeah, it's just all these different things in that the future of Star Wars, I think, is still bright. There's still a lot of things that could happen, as much as it can be a little bit like down in the dumps when it comes to being online and, oh, there goes another Star Wars project that got canceled again. And oh, there goes this and that. And I've been guilty of it too. I have been. It after a while, it begins feeling like, man, it's like passing a kidney stone, just trying to create a Star Wars thing, you know? It'll eventually come out, but it's a painful process to get there. But like, yeah, I don't know. This has really like even just that one IGN interview really brought a lot of hope to me in that, like, you know, the future of Star Wars is really bright, and I think there's going to be a lot of things for us to chew on and discuss, and maybe not be as defeatist when it comes to like prospective series and movie announcements. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to know that that is news because we've been chattering so much about things being canceled or things not happening. I mean I do think, you know, if there's a Kevin at Marvel being approached for Star Wars thing, it might be the droid at the end of what's it called, She-Hulk. So you just go to ChatGPT and write Star Wars script.
There you go, right?
And you know that the sad thing is that's probably coming out.
Oh, boy.
You know, I'll just say my final piece. The one that I hope happens, but it's also the most volatile, but it's also the one I really want to happen for your sake, Matthew, is the James Mangold one. Because I sent you the articles like biblical epic, 10 Commandments, First Jedi. It's like, dang, that sounds right out of Matthew's alleyway. And I hope exactly. So I hope that one happens, even though it seems the furthest right now. Just in terms of probably development. But yeah, that's all I had to say about the movies. Again, you know, I agree with anyone who still follows the Rayside rule, but again, you can't deny this feels a lot more tangible in terms of like, hey, we can actually talk about stuff that may happen. We can actually theorize. But yeah. Celebration.
That biblical. You say biblical epic. You say Bible, and I'm just like, okay, what does that mean?
The Bible.
But I mean, to my mind, it goes to there's that Noah's Ark film that I've never seen.
Noah,
but apparently it's actually really kind of true to a lot of the scholarship and archaeology around
Is
it.
it Noah?
Yeah, but it's just called
Oh.
Noah.
I love Noah. It's a great film.
Yeah.
Darren Aronofsky. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should see it, and that's what where my mind goes, because I mean that's not directly like the story in the Bible. There's a lot more in there, and yeah, archaeology, ancient lore, ancient history.
Well,
Yeah,
he is doing indie, so he's
there
already
you
doing
go.
something with archaeology.
There you
In
go.
Lucasfilm, so
Yeah.
in the house. So yeah, yeah. Again, we'll see. Long way to go
Pray.
on all those, but you're right. There's a lot to chew on, a lot to talk about there. Okay. So yeah, there was a TV show that ended. Well, no, the season ended. The show is not ending yet. We'll get to that later on. But Joel, let's talk about Bad Batch season 2.
The bad bitch.
Bad Batch.
Bad Batch. All right.
They weren't a good batch.
Woo!
They were a good Bad Batch.
It's true.
That's true. It
Very
was a
true.
good batch of Bad Batch.
I liked it.
Yeah, season 2. Oh boy, I guess I'll get my overall thoughts with season 2. I mean, I guess get overall thoughts of the show first. Man, it's kind of amazing still thinking about Bad Batch as the show, that when it was first announced, like, this is the spin-off we're getting. I'm sorry about my lights, by the way. Like, I'm
Me
trying
too.
not to get my thing in the eye.
It's fine.
This is the spin-off we're getting. We want Trace and Rafa. They're the more interesting characters. We don't want this A team of archetypes. They don't look interesting. Who is this made for? And then 2 seasons later, we're crying because one of them probably passed. But yeah, season 1 was really good. Developed the batch. And it really made me fall in love with the characters, continuing the story of the clones. Really dealing with that, and season 2 just continued that. It started off very quiet, but then as it kind of projected, it got bigger and bigger, and now it's like, oh man, where are we heading with this? But overall, yeah, I think it had maybe a quiet start for season 2, but then after the midpoint, it's like bang, it's like dang, I think maybe it had more episodes I liked more than season 2 overall. Especially very emotional as well episodes. So yeah, I think it all kind of culminated well this season. But I'll toss it to Omar, just your basic thought before we give into like the nitty gritty, just your kind of basic thoughts of the Bad Batch season 2, and if you want to just talk about what your thoughts on the show were as when it started, when announced, and how we got here.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a fan of like ranking shows, which is something I love doing, it's very, very fun to do in my opinion. In my opinion, a lot of Star Wars animation is like a B tier. Like it kind of has always sit very comfortably there, and I don't think Bad Batch is an exception in that regard. It very much lives there. Season 1 was very good. I thought it was very good Star Wars, but I wanted it a little bit more out of some character interactions, and very specifically out of Tech and Echo. And I talked about this last time I was on the podcast. And it's like they heard me. So that was really great to get a little bit more of Tech and Echo in season 2 of the Bad Batch. And yeah, just overall, I feel like I kind of echo a little bit of the same basic thoughts that Joel said. There came to a point, you say around middle of the season, I say maybe a little bit earlier than that. And kind of once you were done with, again, we're not saying the F word, but the ones that are more standalone episodes there, but still expand upon the character work. They still had their purpose. They still expanded on the great character work, specifically with Tech and Echo. So a little bit before the midpoint, I would say pretty much onward, the season was great. It was like just A+ quality Star Wars content, and overall this show for me is like it's A tier. It's this season specifically did really great job in upping the ante, in my opinion. So
yeah, Matthew, your thoughts and feelings?
So I mean, the first thing to say is this is relevant to bring up the news that was dropped, I believe, this morning. It'll come out a third and final season. It's a trilogy, and this season was the second part of the trilogy.
Yep.
The second act. What happens in the second act? Well, the plot does move somewhat, but more importantly, the characters move. And so episodes that people thought were standalone or F word, whatever, really were the characters finding themselves who they are, especially Tech, especially Omega, who continues to emerge as the main character of the series. She already had in season 1, but her ability, and we'll get into specifics of it, but to step out and be a hero at her age and at her level of maturity, if you will. And so I really appreciated that. I really appreciated that they took the time to stop and challenge the viewer to watch what the characters were doing for themselves, because then again, we'll get to this at the end, to set up the third act, the final part of the trilogy, is really where the plot, the story, the narrative comes to its fulfillment, but has to do a lot of work there. So good job, great writing, good planning out overall.
Yeah, a good trilogy of shows. That's something a lot of animated shows have been doing lately. Fibia got it. I don't know how she got it. I'll say this. This might be a hot take, maybe a bit of a hot take. I feel like Bad Batch, if season 3 goes really well, will be the first Star Wars animated series to not be compromised by something. I mean, strangely, all of them kind of have to a certain extent.
Like
Clone
real
Wars
world
got,
things, you mean?
Yeah. Clone Wars got compromised because they had to get canceled. I mean, came back for the finale. I feel Rebels kind of got compromised in a sense. I think they wanted to tie in more with the live action stuff, and then just they had to change course. Like, I still think Rebels was about the Death Star stealing story, and then they had to change course, and some things with like the Mandalorians that kind of got cut off and never happened, and that probably got folded into Mandoverse. Resistance got undercut, and what could have been a 3-season show only became a 2-season show. So a lot of plot points got dropped. So this show, if I think it seemed like, they probably went in with like, okay, 3 seasons, you in, you out, and you're getting your full trilogy of seasons. So it seems like this is probably the least compromised of the shows we've gotten so far. At least it seems that way. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll find some behind the scenes stuff later on in years. But that's my hot take.
I just want to say about that, there is the when this is set really serves that, because there's so much time between then and the New Hope, whereas of course, I mean, Clone Wars has to be within a certain time, and Rebels had to be within a certain time. Resistance also within a certain time.
Right.
They were a bit more free with this, because it's at the beginning of a big gap between films.
Right.
That certainly helps. Yeah, that certainly helps as well. Oh, did you want to comment on that, Omar?
No, just great points all around that both of y'all made. Yeah, I agree.
Yes. So let's get started with some of the certain points, and let's get to point 1.
Yeah.
The Sid missions. There was a lot of Sid missions this season. Actually, there's actually pretty what it was. But I think in hindsight, they all sort of served the purpose of the Batch's frustration with just their lot in life, and kind of trying to decide, should they get involved in the big things or stay not as involved in the big things. And then by the end, obviously, life just the galaxy side. Nope, you're gonna get involved in the big things. You're gonna get Mount Tantisted.
We're taking Omega. Sorry.
Yeah, we're taking Omega. We're taking Omega. I like some Sid missions more than others. The Indiana Jones one is not my favorite. I like those racing one, because I like racing. That was a lot of fun, and a tech episode. I like seeing
this episode.
This was a tech season, really. I liked the Count Dooku Palace, because Count Dooku, got to see more of that. That was fun, but also kind of seeing over time just the frustration with Sid, kind of grow and grow and grow until eventually she betrays him. Which is funny though, she kind of betrays him in kind of a very, not even like an aggressive way, just more like in a nonchalant. Well, you came back, and now I gotta have to betray you. Shouldn't come back. But Omar, I'll throw it to you. What are your just thoughts on the Sid of it all this season?
In hindsight, and maybe it's really hitting right now, but it's really impressive how the writers were able to get us, the audience, to feel exactly like the Bad Batch felt by the end of it. Holy heck, who wasn't furious at that moment when everything has hit the fan. We lost Tech, and then of course Sid does what Sid does and disappoints. And like that is honestly thanks to a buildup of feelings that really came across to the fans, even if they didn't really know. Like I feel like some fans were angry at Sid, but they were angry at like, oh, I hate that the writers are using Sid so much. But now you realize, oh, you're playing into their trap. You're playing to exactly what the writers want you to feel. And I think just right now is where it's really hitting me like, oh, they did their job and then some. That was really good. Yeah, my opinion of it all is yes, it was getting annoying. It was something I wanted to get more of a variety and not just constant Sid missions. I wanted them to move on from that, which again, now I can attribute it's all 100% on the writers. And I think as much as we are still angry at Sid, I think my controversial opinion is I think they might still redeem Sid in some way for season 3. And I think that's going to be a really tough sell for a lot of the audience because they've kind of already built like how they want the audience to feel about Sid. And they're going to have to try extra hard if they're going to do that, if they end up doing that. But yeah, that's my opinion on Sid. I think kudos to the writers because I think they portrayed exactly what they wanted to portray to us, the audience. So
Yeah, Matthew, your thoughts on the Sid of it all?
Yeah, Omar, your point about frustration, word for word. Yeah, like why is she, what's happening? Why are they still going? Every single mission goes south. Every single one goes south. And I was frustrated and I was confused. But yeah, like you said, I mean, the writing, plotting it out, I still don't know. Is she was she just trying to screw them over? Was she trying to get them caught or dead or whatever? Or was it a last minute thing where the Empire was on the doorstep and she just called them in or whatever?
yeah.
You know, she's kind of, oh, I what can I do? I had to make bank here. I don't know. And that's good call on the writers to do that. I hope they put that kind of thought into it. Of course, they always do. And so, um, I just like to find out next season maybe what she was hoping for, what her motivations were. That was teased at the beginning with in the racing episode. Watch out for Sid when the going gets tough. I will say, when she drops out of the picture, when they finally decide to just ignore her, that is when the story does pick up. You know, we get the everything with the island mountain. I forget what it's called.
Babu.
Babu. We get. I mean, interspersed with the whole thing. I mean, everything to do with Crosshair and Mount Tantus. Yeah, these two mountain islands, Babu and Tantus. So it does pick up. And yeah, I mean, again, going back to the character question, is this batch, are they going to have the courage to make the decision, the courage to recognize this isn't worth the struggle? It is kind of perplexing why they go back. I guess it's the only place to go, last desperate effort. They're so injured and beaten up by this fight on that planet. And so yeah, I guess if there was, I don't know, kind of a weak link though, I would still say it was yeah, maybe just not so much Sid herself and the missions going south, but the ambiguity about why this is what's happening in the story.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair, yeah. But yeah, I think I think Sid definitely played her part, and I'll be very interesting if they do redeem her. But let's talk about the batch themselves. Save one because I want to save that one for last. That batcher for last. You know the one. But it's interesting, kind of looking at this season as part of a whole. You know, season 1 was very much Hunter, Wrecker, and Omega's season. I think by far. And season 2 is very much Echo Tech season. Omega gets a little development too, obviously. But I think in some episodes she takes a seat back, especially to give Tech and Echo their due. I think actually when Echo leaving helps his development in a weird way because he kind of gets to go off and do his thing. Hunter has a little bit of development as well, kind of just battle back and forth whether or not to do anything, and in some ways his choice is made for him. Um, you know, but he chose to save Crosshair, and then his choice obviously is very much made for him when they take Omega. Um, but I thought, overall, the development was really good, and I think because Hunter and Wrecker are already enough well-rounded, that Tech and Echo shine, especially the relationship between Tech and Omega. I think was very well handled this season. I love seeing them develop and grow, and just feels by the end, man. Feels by the end. But Omar, again, we'll do it to you. What did you think of just the development of the batch? Save, of course, you know who will save till the end.
Absolutely. So first, I want to kind of go over Echo because Echo was one of the characters I really wanted, to have a little bit more. We have been with Echo the longest out of all of these characters, and I think there is a bias among a lot of fans to say, okay, we want more of Echo. And at the moment, like especially in season 1, it kind of felt like he was just lumped in as the person who was part droid. I guess he could be also pretty smart. So he did have some really funny moments in season 1 that I really liked. But that aside, it was very much just, we wanted more from him. And I think we did get a bit more in this season. And the choice to make him go with Rex kind of hurt me a little bit because I was like, man, I feel like we were getting in this very interesting conflict with him and Hunter as to where Omega should go in her life. Because it very much was like two parents like deciding like which way should we take our child, should we raise her to be this soldier and fight for what's good and fight for the clones' rights and everything, or she's a child, we need to like settle down somewhere to where she can grow up and make her own decisions like that. It was an interesting conversation that we saw a little bit at the beginning, we saw a little bit of it throughout, and then it kind of felt like with Echo leaving, there wasn't that conversation happening as much because Echo was one half of that conflict. But of course, he came back by the end of it, and I loved it. There was a moment at the end where, right before they went off to the mission, where Echo and Hunter kind of had a conversation about that, and I love that they were like, okay, they're still having that in mind. And then, of course, once they lose Tech, they both sit down, or Hunter sits down with Omega and says, "Is this what you want? Do you want to stay on Pabu?" That whole conflict with Omega, that is stemmed with Hunter and Echo on the shoulders of Omega, and kind of like I found that really interesting and really good. It's just something that maybe even now in hindsight, I wish we kind of got a little bit more, because now like the choice has been completely off the table. Omega is captured, and now the conflict becomes something else. So I love that about Echo. Tech. Again, this was the season of Tech. This was Tech had some really great moments. I absolutely love the scene where he sits down and talks with Omega about how he processes emotions and thoughts and everything. Love that for representation. Love that for just bringing those two characters closer together. And I love that he was forming a relationship with Fee, and that should have been the red flag that we all should have seen coming. Because oh no, a relationship not in Star Wars. No, we can't have that. We can't have that. One of them has to die. So, of course, that definitely got me very teary-eyed. It was up there with a lot of the really great deaths in Star Wars animation. And yeah, just overall in terms of like character work, I feel like much like Rebels season 2, there was a focus on it here, and I'm really glad they decided to do that. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah, Matthew, your thoughts on the character development of the batch, of course, say for
Yeah, I'll say the last one. Yeah, I'll start with Echo too. Yeah, Echo leaving provided the solution that made room for Tech to jump in and shine, for Omega to make her decision about who she is. That point about the being the angel, not devil, but the voices on the shoulder.
Yeah,
I should say that was a really great point. I mean, it was Echo and Hunter, but also Echo and Tech, really, in that. Well, maybe there are three voices. There's three voices on her shoulder. It's not Angel or Devil. It's Echo and Hunter. Should we stay or should we go? And Tech teaching her to use her wit, use her ingenuity, use her technical skills, and then sacrificing himself at the end. And I do wonder what people in the autism community think about that death. I hope they're okay with it. It does seem kind of odd, the one disability representation character he gets killed, but also to say maybe he willingly has the agency to take that choice, make that choice. That is of course going to affect Omega and everyone going forward, just the way Echo leaving affected her. Yeah, it's true, Hunter does take a bit of a back seat, but yeah, is along for the ride of what happens. But here's the thing, and it does still come down to Omega for me, looking ahead to season 3, but also seeing in light of that, seeing what we see is she does make her choice. She does step into her agency and say, no, I am going to be a part of this water rebellion. I'm going to be more of a hero that I can be, that I know I can be, because specifically the combination of all three, because Tech has taught her to how to fly and how to solve problems, because Hunter has instilled in her this deep sense of family, the bonds the team has, but also of course just the family has as clones, and but also Echo and the opportunity to step out and fight and take part in this wider story. I do recall, Hera is also in the background there a little bit at her age as well. And Wrecker, Wrecker's there and involved. I guess he'd be again the weaker link, but he didn't need. I mean, well, I think Wrecker even not always as bombastic as he was. He isn't also. He didn't at least feel one dimensional, kind of not mustache twirling, but stereotypical the way he did before, especially the Clone Wars arc. So, I think again, looking back, if we seeing season 3 and the implications of season 2, Omega's story is going to come to the fore even more.
Yeah, I agree. I also really like the kind of what Pabu represented is like this could be where their happily ever after was, and ultimately it was not. And of course, that gets us into our next point. The Empire side, what's going on in the universe, kind of the thing the Bad Batch has been avoiding. Really cool to see the continuation of the decommissioning of the clones. Just kind of what their lot in life is, and why you don't see them anymore. Just kind of how sad it is. Just like nope, dump them. Good. The Empire ready, dump them. We got we got the return of Admiral Rampart in the first half of the season. I thought it was really interesting, kind of how the show started, where considering Rampart were going to be still our big bad, like he eliminated the fact that Batch was even alive, and then it's kind of like, psych, Rampart, he's a nothing. He's always been a nothing. He can easily go. You don't need him. Someone else can continue the work from here. He's expendable. And then you get honestly my favorite villain of the season, Dr. Hemlock, who I think is like super cool because he's super creepy. It's like just so calm and collective. It's like he's the kind of got that strong levels of like he's around, he's in control. He's like always thinking. He's always 2 steps ahead of everybody, and he's got his own toxin that he's immune to. It's like Scarecrow. So that's cool. What else would I say? I guess if I maybe had a Kristen, like maybe they could have transitioned between the villains a little bit more, like introduce Hemlock maybe just a little bit earlier, and then just transitions like, okay, now Hemlock's the main baddie and Rampart, get out of here. But overall, we got some really cool villains, and obviously we got to see the Emperor, and kind of just seeing the big transition to when the Stormtroopers are now going to be made public to the public. So I thought that was really cool on the Imperial side, of course, save for one character who we're gonna say to the end because gotta save the best for last. I say. But Omar, I'll throw it to you. What do you think of our Imperial villains, the return of Rampart, and the new guy, Dr. Hemlock?
Yeah, you kind of hit the nail on the head when it comes to one criticism that I have regarding it, and it's the fact that I feel like we discarded Rampart a little too quickly, in my opinion. He was one of the characters I definitely wanted to see more of, mainly because I wanted to see him be his own character outside of just another Tarkin, I guess. And he never hit obviously the levels of interesting in terms of like being a Tarkin, but I wanted him to really be kind of his own, okay, evil Imperial in his own kind of way. And I feel like he never had the opportunity to be. But at the same time, here's the other side of the coin of it. Like, I really like Dr. Hemlock. He's really great. I love his voice. His voice is really good. And I feel like he has like this has a sense of control over the entire situation that is very appealing and in a way very Thrawn in a small way, but just Thrawn for science, very different. But yeah, no, so that stuff's interesting. I wish Rampart, a little bit of a bigger role, a little bit, and who's to say he doesn't? Who's to say that in season 3 we might not get a little bit more Rampart? I mean, it's an Imperial that was thrown away by the Empire could be an interesting plot point for maybe the Batch to encounter again. But that aside, there was a lot of really great Imperial moments this season. I loved Palpatine's speech. I love his ability to turn something that looks like could be detrimental to him and turn it around and say, nope, I'm using this opportunity to announce my brand new shiny toy. And that's what he did. And it's just speaks volumes of like who Palpatine is. It's very typical of how he's always one step ahead of the curve. He has backup plans and he will use you to the best of your ability until he no longer has use for you. So yeah, that's my opinion. I think the Imperial side of things is really interesting this season, and definitely whenever it focused on them, it was a highlight of the entire season for every time. So
yeah, Matthew, what are your thoughts on our two Imperial baddies?
Well, first of all, Palpatine isn't just one step ahead of everybody. He's 3 or 4. He has backup plans to his backup plans to his backup plans.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I get your point there. I really love that the show is really exploring these questions. I gather in Legends they've explored them too, but the origins of the stormtroopers and yeah, I mean, well, everything with Mount Tantus and what's going on there with cloning and dark arts and the weird stuff that, yeah, I mean, of course, Heir to the Empire and the Throne trilogy explores with George Sarbath, but we get this canon version of it that definitely, I mean, like I've said before, we're meant to speculate out loud that this connects with Rise of Skywalker, with the return of Palpatine, everything, of course, that Tonway, I think, is saying. Well, I know what he's trying to do.
Lama Su?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, the Kaminoans, whatever the names are. Everything he's trying to do, but we're not going to be part of it. And yeah, so yeah, there's the doctor, that assistant who is voiced by someone who's also been in Star Wars elsewhere. I forget her name. She was also really intriguing in that we don't fully know. I mean, she does her job. She follows along. Is she gonna betray them? Is she committed to the cause too? We don't know. But really, that was a good ambiguity that I appreciated. That they gave more time with her than they had to, than they needed to necessarily. One last thing with the clones and everything with Senator Chuchi. I mean, it's another piece in the puzzle. I talk about the Bad Batch stepping out and joining the rebellion. The treatment of the clones becomes another injustice that sparks the rebellion. And again, I don't know if that was necessarily true in Legends, but this seems a lot more connected. You have Senator Chuchi and Bail Organa in cahoots there. This seems a lot more connected with the overall movement that we, of course, see culminate in A New Hope and Return of the Jedi. That, yeah, they're really exploring it from the perspective of Rex and of course Rex and Echo and the Bad Batch characters, the main characters of this season of the series. And yeah, the episodes, Joel, we've talked about this on Eyes on Screen before, but the episodes that don't involve the Bad Batch, I still cared about and I still was invested in, because I mean, they involve the main villains of the galaxy and the main villains of this series. Everything going on with the clone retirement. What'll be interesting to see is how that connects. I mean, it's more obvious. Everything with Mount Tantus and the Kaminoans, that's more obviously connected to who Omega is and how the Bad Batch came to be this more enhanced part of the program. How that connects to the Stormtrooper program, I don't quite know. Thing about Rampart, yeah, I mean, he was a patsy. He thought he was more than he was, and that's, of course, the downfall of any Imperial is when you think you're more than you are. Even Tarkin himself. So it's interesting. You Omar said he was maybe another Tarkin. Well, he dies, and we get actual Tarkin.
Yeah, I know, that's true. We got Tarkin.
And that's another reminder. What, 17 years later, evacuate in our moment of triumph. An Imperial thinks he's bigger than he is.
Yeah,
ends up eating it. So Palpatine himself, right? So I really enjoyed the way they used this. Again, I think season 3, there's going to be more. Well, the way they ended up, the way they left it off, right, with Omega captured on Tantus, the one they wanted in the first place, right? The one that how she's the key to so much of the series. I think her and Grogu. I do again think her and Grogu connect to what Palpatine's return and Rise of Skywalker somehow. Again, we're meant to think that. We're meant to wonder about that. We're not meant to necessarily know how ultimately, but so that one's obvious. What is the interaction between the Bad Batch and the Rise of the Stormtroopers? I don't know, but we'll wait and see.
Yeah. And also, really cool. I actually got the terrorist senator was from Rogue One. They got her voice actors back. The one with the headscarf.
Yeah.
They got Ben Mendelsohn apparently to do a role. He was there for Krennic.
Yeah, it was Krennic.
One line. Yeah.
I mean, you never know. Maybe he came back for more for season 3.
Yeah, maybe. I
could see it.
Yeah.
That was cool. I really liked the Summit episode, just kind of seeing like what's Dr. Hemlock really up to, and it's like all the other Imperials with their little projects and whatnot. Whatever the Emperor wants that came Nala say. That's the scientist.
Yes.
Cannot be achieved. So that is very curious as well. But lots of Imperial intrigue on Mount Tantus, and it's very interesting.
Yes, very.
But finally, we're saving it. I saved the best for last. The character we all love, because we kind of want to just knock him over the head with logic. The one and the only Crosshair. Wow, what an arc! What an arc this season. I think Crosshair is going to go down as one of the most best clone we've probably ever had. Just seeing that isolation and that struggle, just kind of finally coming to realize, not even the Empire is really going to care about him. He really doesn't have a place here. Even Rampart at the beginning is like, why are you even still here? But he's like, well, all right, whatever. I loved his first mission with Cody, dealing with former separatists. I loved his mission, obviously, in the snowy outpost. That was so dramatic, and it just finally when he snaps, and obviously we see him again in Mount Tantus, doing who knows what with Omega's apparently from Omega's sister. Apparently,
yes, that's Omega's sister. Is she a clone too?
Yeah, how does that work? What's going on there?
What's her name? I'm gonna look up her name because I've mentioned her. I just mentioned her before.
She played the Queen of Naboo in episode 3 because of the different actress. I forget what that Queen's name in episode 3 was. But just his whole arc in general was so interesting. And it's a little sidestep for season 3. Looks like it's still going to be going as Omega and him are stuck in Mount Tantus, and I love the fact that Omega still wants to help him regardless, because she is her brother, and Omega's just love for her brother and family is so strong. But yeah, Omar, thoughts on the one and only Crosshair?
Oh
Crosshair.
man, these.
Crosshair.
Well, it was mainly 2 episodes, right, that we got with Crosshair.
I think he was in Turning Point, at least
Well,
in terms of,
I guess I
in terms of
meant like focused.
yeah.
Crosshair. Like those 2 episodes, they'll go down as some of my favorite animated Star Wars stuff because they were top tier. They did really excellent character work, and to just boil down how I feel about his arc in general, it's a redemption built on his need and want for a brother again. And I think that's the heart of it in terms of like he felt like he had a connection there with Cody. He fought alongside Cody, and at the very end, what happens? Cody goes the way of his other brothers and leaves. And you could see kind of like the defeat in Crosshair, his anger, his like anger not just at Cody but at himself as to like whether or not he's doing the right thing. And then later on, he forms a connection with, I'm so sorry, I don't remember the name of the clone.
Emery Carr. Or do you mean the on the snowy planet?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That clone. I don't remember the name of that clone. But
the sister is Emery Carr. That's her name. The
okay.
scientist. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No. So yeah, in the second episode, which again is my favorite episode, that one is my favorite episode of the season when Crosshair finally turns. He forms a connection with that clone there on that base, and then just to see him die right next to him, it was such a powerful moment. It really hit hard, and it felt amazing when he just raised that gun and shot the Imperial. That just was a little overly Imperial like in my opinion, but you know what, to drive home the point of like, hey Crosshair, you need to get your ass up and like do something about this. He served his purpose, and he went down, and it was wonderful. Crosshair's redemption is built on that want for a brother, and I feel like it only makes sense that he was able to finally turn at that moment when he realized, oh, I do need someone. I do need a brother. I do need someone to work off of, because like it sucks being alone. This whole arc of his is an extremely lonely arc, and I can't wait to see. Well, I will get there, but I can't wait to see how season 3 handles that. So,
yeah. Matthew, what were your thoughts on Crosshair's arc this season?
I mean, first of all, being a bit over Imperial, yeah, I can see that. I mean, kind of one-dimensional. It's an animated series, so they can have a bit more exaggerated characters a little bit, but really, I mean, that character is serving to push Crosshair in this direction. I've talked about, sorry about that. I've talked about the Armorer, for example, as this very cold, strict, focused character. Crosshair was kind of like that too, but for all that, it means that when the circumstances change, they can adapt and very quickly adjust to the change and to the circumstances. And because the basis for their loyalty has now shifted, because they're so loyal, they shift with that basis of loyalty. And so being loyal to the order that Crosshair thought the Empire brought, turns out it's its own form of chaos. And the order of being with his brothers, being with his family, that supersedes it. And so, yeah, I mean, what it raises questions about, at least Cody, his story raises some questions about Order 66 and the chips and all that. Yeah. Clearly, Crosshair, didn't have the inhibitor chip, didn't activate. He truly was loyal. He truly believes in the Empire, and now he sees what the Empire is. I will say, I didn't connect as much. I really enjoyed it. Really appreciated his arc. I think if we had more time with him, I would have connected as much as you guys did. I appreciate that you did. Love what you love, but again, maybe there's got to be more for him to do in season 3. And so for all that, the fact that season 2 really set that up really well, I'm looking forward to. Again, it's the character work. It's the character shift that this season really did well overall, did with Crosshair as well.
Yeah, and I guess we can talk about, I mean, sort of went over the miscellaneous stuff too. Like I liked Gunji and the Zillow Beast, and that was fun.
Mhm.
Great.
Seeing Stener Tucci return, all that good stuff. But what is the future? The season 3, the final season, a nice little trilogy. Thanks to our buddies at the SWU Star Wars Underworld, we know at least what we can see in what within the leaked, what not shown trailer. Basically, apparently Omega is vital to everything that's going on in Mount Tantus, according to Echo. We're gonna see Palpatine visit Mount Tantus. That's exciting. Maybe the show really will go into like the dark science exegol stuff. Wolf will be making his debut. Fennec Shan is back. All right, me no win.
Yep.
We're gonna see things like Omega and Crosshair are gonna be doing a lot of talking together, and Omega's not giving up on him, even though Crosshair's like, "Nah, you should. I'm not the Bad Batch," and it's just looking like, oh man, I'm excited. I just so many theories and feels, and I'm just sort of like I'm curious, like what are they doing on Mount Tantus? Like we got obviously probably some exegol shenanigans happening, but I do wonder if like more stuff going on as well with the clones and all that stuff, and obviously if the Emperor is getting involved personally, this must be big. He doesn't get involved in stuff that unless it's something super duper important. We can see him and Dr. Hemlock. He can make a fun big bad for the season for sure. But Omar, I'll toss it to you. What are you looking forward to this season? Got any fun speculations and theories and whatnot?
Here's my here's my big want. My big want that could definitely not happen, but something I would definitely would like to see happen. It's kind of a I hope they don't repeat what happened with the beginning of Rebels season 3. I feel like at the end of season 2 there was a really interesting thing with Ezra tackling in the dark side. He was going to kind of confront some dark thoughts. It just seemed like there was going to be an arc there that was going to expand more than just the premiere episode. And in that similar case, I love the dynamic of the team now. I love that Omega is with Crosshair, with this supposed sister character that we need to know more about. I just think there's a lot of opportunity for character development for Omega and for Crosshair, just for everyone there at the Mount Tantus area in the location there. Almost to the point where I wouldn't mind if that is where we see most of the episodes take place. Like I wouldn't mind that. Like, and we and much like how with Crosshair was this season, we occasionally go back to what Hunter and what they are doing to try to get Omega back. But of course, maybe a little more variety than just 2 episodes that are spent dedicated to that. That's my hope. That's my want. The thing I mainly really want to avoid is just they pick up Omega and then the rest of the season 3 is kind of like done. I mean, that could still be interesting, obviously, but I think you have a great opportunity for character relations to really expand, and for us to get some good quality Crosshair moments. And I want season 3 to be more Crosshair heavy, specifically since season 2 we only had these 2 episodes. So yeah, like those are my biggest wants, and it's all character work that I'm excited for. I mean, sure, yes, Mount Tantus. I want to know what's going on with with Palpatine, and like I have already kind of a rough idea as to where that's heading. So that's kind of a given to me at this point, that we're gonna learn more and things are gonna get confirmed, and that's gonna be exciting. But really, I really want to see what happens with Omega, what happens with Crosshair, and what happens with this brand new character that we have, or that we have seen, the sister character. We really need to have a better name for her outside of sister character.
Well, Emery Carr.
Emery Carr. That is her. Okay, sorry, that's what you were saying before. Okay, Emery Carr. Okay, I will ingrain that into my brain from now on, because
according to the internet that I just saw,
right,
from what I can remember. Yeah.
But yeah, those are my hopes for season 3 of the Bad Batch. I'm extremely excited.
Yeah, so here's sort of my my kind of my crackpot theory based off of another show that ended with two characters getting captured by the villain. The She-Ra Princess of Power on Netflix. First half of the season is them on Tantus, and then the second half they get free, and then the second half is kind of the final showdown with whoever needs to be the big bad, be it Dr. Hemlock or, I don't know, maybe they'll bring in Darth Vader or something. And that clone uprising that we've all been talking about since day one is finally going to happen. It's going to be a big showdown. Not going to win, but they're gonna kick some buttons and remind the fans of the galaxy why clone troopers are still the best. So that's my crackpot theory in terms of how this next season might be organized, and also because I do feel like season 2 also had kind of the midpoint. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. The clone rebellion is still something that absolutely needs to happen. So
yeah. So Matthew, what are your thoughts, feelings about season 3? Hopes, desires, wants, lures, whatever. All the things. All the things.
I mean, I like your theory about the overall structure of a balance between everything with Mount Tantus and then the wider story of the rebellion. Of course, everything Mount Tantus is also a wider story. That'll be my answer of how the origins of the stormtroopers and the clone it connects to the Bad Batch, to the clone uprising. They've really done a lot of work this season, focusing on Mount Tantus, making that a place where a lot of things in season 3 get sorted out and get figured out, especially like you said, Omega, as again the having Tech's problem solving skills, Echo's commitment to the wider story, to the rebellion, Hunter's commitment to the family, and that's going to be the big linchpin with Crosshair. Then is Omega's commitment to the family, her drawing him back in, maybe even Emery in her commitment, Omega's commitment possibly to Emery, any clone she's going to feel a bond with. And so what I'm really hoping for most of all is I think Omega has the potential to step out and become one of the all-time greats and all-time beloveds that she hasn't quite yet. She has still, that's the challenge with this whole season. The challenge with this series specifically is that it's an ensemble, and it's a larger ensemble than even Rebels. Maybe comparatively to Rebels. Rebels needed 4 seasons for those characters to step out as all-time greats. Omega, I really want the focus on her, especially this first half. That first half, if it is, and anything to do with Tantus. Is there something to do with the Force? With the Exegol stuff. Something to do with her destiny as someone who the purpose of the whole clone program, but also as a character, as someone who can be a servant of the light in a darker galaxy. The stormtrooper uprising and how the clone trooper uprising and how that has to fail. I wonder. I mean, so this is Star Wars animation for you. Clone Wars season 7, such a haunting ending to that, the masks in the snow. Bad Batch season 1, the ending of that with the destruction of Camino. There's going to be possibly it's going to be maybe Thanos snap level of all these clones meeting their end at the hands of the Stormtrooper Corps, and that really evoking all that pathos, all that that sadness, that tragedy, that both for the viewers as well as for the characters themselves, as it becomes again one aspect in the birth of the rebellion and the role. I mean, we know Rex and Gregor and who's the third one in Rebel? That is where Ezra and Kanan then meet. Wolf.
Yeah, Wolf.
Yeah, I guess, and I don't know if we've encountered Gregor yet in this in Bad Batch. Of course,
we did.
Okay, we have. So, that's true. So, I mean, they kind of go into exile, go into hiding on that planet, but that's 18 years from now. So, their role continuing in the rebellion I'm curious to see. Again, it doesn't have to be so explicitly tied into the bigger story directly. I would like some kind of nuance, but it seems to me that that's where this is going. Both the story in Rise of Skywalker, the story in A New Hope, and then the story in Rise of Skywalker and The Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, that is something I'm very curious about, how they end the show. Like, what is the note you end the show
True.
on? I mean, Rebels was very mix of bittersweet, but leaning on the positive side. Clone Wars obviously had to end pretty much at the tragedy, because that's
Yeah.
the point of the Clone Wars. Where does Bad Batch lie? And because it's sort of like, well, obviously, we got 25 years till the Empire falls.
Mhm.
Omega's still a kid. I don't think they're gonna kill off a kid, and obviously, I would say save Omega up, because you might want to age her up for a little bit later. Beats for something. What happens to one thing? I guess I'll say I want Crosshair to escape Mount Tantus alive and rejoin the batch.
Yes.
But if he's gonna die, at least have him die like during the big battle uprising, like sacrifice for all the brothers, man. Sacrifice
be-
for all the
yeah.
brothers.
Another Plan 99, right?
Kind of, essentially, yeah. If we, I mean, I don't know how many of the characters are gonna die. I think Omega is safe to live.
I think so too.
She's kind of the only one.
You have a young character that could definitely be aged up and stick into live action for some reason, So,
I mean, yeah, exactly. So I think we'll see her. Everyone else,
yeah,
they
everyone
could
else
die.
they're on the
Everyone
table.
else, exactly.
I don't think it's gonna be all of them, but
Yeah.
Maybe. I'm gonna make a big call right now. I'm gonna put some money down. Well, not really, because I don't want to make any bets,
Yeah,
but
no.
I could make
put in a
a
super
call.
chat. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Calling it now. I'm calling it now. I say this season we get the Darth Vader cameo. I think he's a coming. We get the Emperor,
Interesting.
so
Mhm.
maybe, I mean, who would you want to
Yeah.
send with the clones or uprisings?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I guess I can see that.
I would just need a really, really good reason to
Yeah.
see him. But I mean, like, I'm never gonna say no to any
The
potential
Vader Rex showdown, like the Vader Ahsoka showdown.
I mean,
Okay,
we're getting the Emperor.
that would be something.
If anything, I'm surprised we got the Emperor first, to be quite honest. Twice.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that makes more sense to me
Yeah,
because of
that's
everything with Mantantis, and his name has been mentioned. So Smoking
Yeah.
Gun.
And
That's true.
Or,
by the way, with y'all talking about like the clone rebellion and everything, it really put into my head just like how serious of a thing. Like if they brought the rebellion to Mount Tantus and Palpatine's like, hey, that's my place where I'm like planning to do all these really big ideas.
Mhm.
Clones got to go. That's scary.
Yeah.
I really hope the show doesn't end on too much of a sour note.
It's an
It's-
animated
that-
show. Right?
I know.
It's an animated show set in the dark times.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
worse. It's like you
Worse.
can almost kind of have to.
Well, my point is,
think-
it's an animated show, so maybe not as bad.
Yeah.
It's not like Andor.
Right. I
Yes,
mean,
it
that
does.
got- it's not like Rogue One.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do think Chris from Star Wars Underworld brought up a good point of like,
Mhm.
I think what you'll see is kind of a 2-tier kind of thing with Mount Tantus. You'll see kind of the initial whatever they're doing to the clones, like making Death Troopers or mind-controlled clones or evil super soldiers, which will get defeated because obviously we don't see them. But then obviously you kind of have the longer-term implications of, here's this research. Oh, hey, we can clone the Emperor. That's interesting. That's neat. Probably
Snoke's in a jar. Snoke's in a
Snoke's
jar.
in a
Exactly.
jar.
Exactly. Because I do think they'll want to give the Bad Batch some sort of win. And obviously, I think if you make it too much of, oh, this is just all about Exegol, there is no other thing,
Yeah, I know.
no kind of front. You can have the Exegol stuff kind of be more like, oh yeah, well we can just continue that. But there goes that one project. Oh well.
Yeah.
The bigger project is, and obviously, we kind of get stuff like that already with like, Tarkin going, Project Stardust. We know that's always always in the ether. I guess also one thing, and it's a character I'm kind of shocked hadn't shown up. Where is the OG clone? Where is the Alpha?
Yeah.
Where's Boba?
Ah,
Is he gonna?
that's
Is
true,
he
yeah.
ever going to kind of appear at least once in this whole thing?
Do we
I
do we
mean-
get the showdown with Cad Bane?
I mean, we think, well, I think that's supposed to have happened because he's got the head plate in his head.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, that's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
But
the second showdown with Cat Bane.
I
Well,
mean, yeah,
you
but
know,
you know, Boba Fett is like, Omega was kind of cloned alongside Boba, I guess. I'm not quite sure how
because
that.
Fennec's connected to Cad Bane.
Right.
That's true, and
Yeah.
we
so-
are going to see Fennec, or we're going to see bounty hunters.
And now we
Yeah.
have a sister, so it's kind of like
Mhm.
more things kind of raise the question as to maybe we will see Boba. Who knows?
Yeah,
There's a lot of ways that could connect. So,
It's the Django bunch.
oh yeah,
I mean, they brought him up in season 1. And it's kind of like
Yeah.
he gets name dropped, and they haven't done anything with
Yeah.
him.
yeah.
I mean, I'm surprised he and Ahsoka honestly haven't showed up. To be quite honest, I'm surprised Dave has
Mhm.
actually managed to hold on this one.
Right.
Maybe
I
because
know.
he's not that involved in Bad Batch. She's like, we don't
Yeah.
need it this time.
Yeah,
But
there's not a lot
I'm
of wolves around, so there's not opportunity for Dave to really.
Right.
but I'm kind of surprised Boba hasn't shown up at all, be it as a helper of the Batch or on the side of the Empire. So maybe he's another
Yeah.
one. I mean,
I
I'm
mean, at
just
this
thinking
point,
cameos.
he's definitely on his own, doing his own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think actually now that you mentioned, I think that's actually kind of interesting. Of you brought up security. What if the
Mhm.
second half they do escape, and obviously Mount Tantus is very important, so to Palpatine. So oh my gosh, they know where Mount Tantus is. I think Dr. Hemlock, you can't do this alone. Bring in
Yeah.
Darth Vader. You're on the hunt now. For
Well, I was
them,
gonna say
so-
bring in Boba Fett. Maybe hire him
Ooh.
to track him
Or
down.
both.
'Cause-
or
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be
Vader,
so
how-
tragic having Boba Fett mow down clones.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
I
that's-
think it might
I
happen.
wonder if they would do that. I hope so. But yeah, just I saw the trailer leaked footage. I didn't know, but it seems like they're really ramping up the story,
Mhm.
of this epic arc, and obviously, I think the Bad Batch will kind of be kind of the final swan song of the clone army
Mhm.
and the clone thread that began with Attack of the Clones. Really, we saw the end of Camino. We saw the decommissioning of the clones. This is kind of their last hurrah in the world as sort of a major player in galactic affairs.
Mhm.
That's how I sort of see it ending. But I do wonder if they'll get a win. Like,
Yeah.
you lost the battle, but you struck a blow still. Yes.
I mean, maybe they destroy Tantus and set Palpatine's
Yeah.
plan back. Maybe that's why Gideon and them are trying to sort of this out with Grogu.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why Snoke is such kind of this disappointment, half baked
Right.
thing. Yeah, maybe
interesting.
that's part of it.
Yeah, that's kind of how I also see kind of what maybe where Mandoverse will go. I mean, I won't do too much in Mandoverse of like this is kind of just setting back plans that could have happened a lot earlier, and obviously Palpatine having worse toys. Overall,
Yeah, I'm just thinking a bit further that I do think fans will be disappointed about that. It's like, oh, they set us up, then they take it down. The point of that will be, he's been planning, trying to figure this out for this long, for all this time. This is kind of the lengths he's willing to go, but also just like with Rey, being all the Jedi, the plan keeps getting foiled.
Right.
Maybe that's why he gets weird and it ends up having to resort to Exegol.
I mean, I assumed that at least by the time of the original trilogy, a lot of this cloning stuff got moved to Exegol. Like,
I mean,
he had
if Greg Pak comics is to be believed, he's already there. So
he's already there and he's doing his thing. So it's like he's already shipped a lot of this stuff out. Kansas is kind of just the early days. I'll turn to you, Omar. How much do you think they'll go into? Do you think they will outright say this is about the Exegol stuff, or do you think they'll be more? Or we're actually like the main thread is like uber evil clones, but obviously with implications like maybe this research can be sent to a news facility later.
You know, while
What
you
do you
guys
think?
were talking, my mind was kind of wandering to a possibility of like the Bad Batch ending on a note of them finally being able to clone Palpatine with the birth of like Rey's dad. But I don't know how timeline wise how that works.
I mean, isn't
Ray's
Ray's
dad
dad
is
he's a clone.
well,
Like
Ray's
he
dad
is.
is 10 by the time of
So he's 10 by the time.
Empire.
Okay. So then that wouldn't exactly oh wait, no, by the
Yeah.
time of Empire.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ray's dad is
Okay,
a
yeah.
clone.
It's way and yeah, Ray's dad is a clone. Yes.
So yeah,
Uh,
but that's a good point that he's being cloned
Yeah.
already, right? Shoot,
Yeah. So
like
that was
5 years
my
before A New Hope.
that was kind of my mentality, and to see how that could be to where maybe the Bad Batch ends on a note where it's like, oh, finally, you know, they're on the way to cloning, because there's a line from the Bad Batch that specifically I'm focused on where they said like, oh, it's not possible what the Emperor wants or something like that. I forgot the line, but like, what is not possible? I mean, very clearly he wants like a perfect clone to be able to transfer his essence to. So is that the thing that's not possible? And it possibly, if we expand on that in season 3, will we get an actual successful attempt, or or not? I don't know. That's where my mind was going. I think it's good. I think it could get very explicit. To answer your question, I think it definitely could. But if anything, it's going to end on something very explicit rather than we see a lot of it throughout the season.
Yeah,
that's my opinion. Yeah,
I think I don't. I think it would be. I think it'd be interesting if, in a weird way. Okay, so Legends time with Joel.
Oh.
We should probably make that a thing. Okay, so in Rise of Skywalker, and according to the Rise of Skywalker novelization, Palpatine had just that one clone. He had that one decaying body clone. He was, grappling on for dear life for the last 30 years after Endor. That was like his one thing until he could finally get this. Thank you. He finally get his, cloning thing to work. In the original Dark Empire of 1991, mentioned by the great Don Veitch, Palpatine, he had a bunch of clones. He had clones to spare. He could just like keep hopping and hopping and hopping in them, like, oh, they decay, and like, oh, this body's running out, into the next one. Oh, this body's running out, into the next one. Young Palpatine, then old Palpatine, and then back to young Palpatine again. They even implied that he's done this before Return of the Jedi. This was the 90s people. This is before the prequels. I think it would almost be interesting if the Mount Tantus thing, that is Palpatine's end goal, to have an endless supply of him clones that he could just transfer his body into, so he could just keep going and going and going and never run out. But then thanks to Bad Batch, he kind of gets stuck with just the one workable clone. It actually would kind of be interesting if they actually did manage to succeed in cloning the Emperor, but they destroyed them all. But there's only that one left, and that's the one that we see in Rise of Skywalker that's all decaying and crippling and dying until Palpatine gets that dyad juice in his veins.
Right.
So it's sort of like, well, yeah, you did kind of had a win, but there was still one left.
Right.
That's how Rise of Skywalker happened. I still think it will be more a front thing with like uber evil mind control clones of the Jango clones, but I can see that happening too.
Yeah.
I mean, to answer the question, they would have to earn it really well, and I do think, I was skeptical. I'd be skeptical that if they come out and say it, this is leading to that. But Omar, the way you describe it, I mean, given how the timeline, like this first halting step, the reason he is going to the mountain. We see in the trailer that he's going. So, or those who watch the trailer, so it's possible. And now that you mention it, that is a way it could be possible for them to show. I hope they show it more than tell it,
exactly,
if at all. But I also be content if they just suggested it or implied it.
Right.
Same here, and I'll just add one more thing is that he used Kaminoan technology, and that was Dr. Perkins' thing. We're using Kaminoan technology. Right now he has the Kaminoan. He's got the OG brains. I think Nala Se is not long for this world. I think if anyone's gonna die, I think she might die before Crosshair, honestly. So you lose your Kaminoan, and it's like that's gonna set the Emperor back. Is like, you lost a good scientist. Now you're stuck with the Dr. Pershings of the world.
I want to see young intern Dr. Pershing.
He might be too young.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I'm just trying to think of what else we could what to cover. Let me just look at Are there? I'll throw it to you, Matthew. This show has sort of wrapped up certain Clone Wars arcs with
Mhm.
the Zillo Beast. Um, are there any particular Clone Wars threads that have yet to kind of been wrapped up that you think would fit in the series? I'm not gonna say
Yeah.
should be because I think you don't want to make this too much of Clone Wars season 10 without kind of like, well, we're going to Mortis now, Bad Batch on Mortis, which would
Yeah.
be funny, but it's sort of like I don't think you don't want to do that. But what do you think in terms of like which arcs could you see
Mhm.
fit in this? Not maybe not like redoing the arc, but like, oh, we haven't seen that in a while, or like, oh, the
Yeah.
Zilla Beast, that's been a while.
I
That
mean,
could that.
Zilbis was kind of nice and random. I mean, the one that comes to mind, I don't know if it fits.
Mhm.
The one that comes to mind is Barris
Ah,
and the
yeah.
Inquisitorius and what's going on with
Yeah.
her. Want to
Right.
talk about Force sensitives who might be loyal to the Empire or not at all.
Mhm.
Might be willing to join the rebellion. She has experience with clones too, of course, as as a Padawan in the Clone Wars.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the great unanswered questions of the Clone Wars. Anything that might fit.
That could fit. Maybe I could see
Yeah,
that. Maybe.
I think that's the one that if there's anything, like because the Zilla Beast was random and I loved it. It was fine.
Yeah.
I mean, everything similar to Cortosis, that kind of lightsaber deflecting deal. Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to seed in because the Inquisitors, we got so much of them in
Mhm.
an animated show for us to in Rebels for us to actually see their origins. Of course, Charles Soule in his comic goes into it too. But yeah, I mean, and I'm assuming, and I shouldn't assume that Barris is connected to the Inquisitors, but we all second sister. No, she's not.
Yeah.
But yeah, what's she up to? What's happening there? If they could seed her in, if she fits in somewhere.
Omar, I'll toss this question to you. What sort of lingering Clone Wars thread you think could fit nicely into a third Bad Batch season that kind of could fit with the story being told? If there was anything you were thinking of.
I don't know of any very specific Clone Wars threads that come to mind particularly. I do tend to remember this one thing, but it could be my memory just messing up. But was there not a lingering thread at the end of the Citadel arc with Tarkin knowing half of a code and Ahsoka knowing half of a code? I don't
I
know.
think that got resolved.
Did
I
it?
think that got I think it's like they
Like,
kind of had
Mhm.
that was the Coruscant hyperspace lanes
Mhm.
stuff, and
Okay, if that got resolved, then yeah, I always thought there was something that was left open with that,
Mhm.
but I guess if that was already resolved, I don't really have anything specific. The Bad Batch has kind of been going strong in its own direction. I love that when we get like these moments of like the Zillo Beast and whatnot. But there's nothing that comes to mind that I would really necessarily want outside of I was like, oh, bring in the Domino Squad, but they're all dead, so
womp. Oh, I mean, I guess I'll say, let's see the Imperial Commandos get some time
Yeah.
to shine.
that would be really cool.
A
Yeah,
little bit, but not
Yeah.
as much. You're right.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let's see them be. That's why they're the Imperial Commandos.
Right.
Let's see
What's
them
the
be
one
little.
from like the actual video game? He's actually there. Scorch?
True.
Is that his name?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Scorch. Let's
Scorch,
see
like,
Scorch actually do some
Give him
stuff.
something to do. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would kind of be my last big thing.
Just think a bit more about Barris. Just tonally it would fit because it's I mean, just even in terms of the actual set, that institution that Ahsoka is taken into, I mean, just the with Palpatine and the big that big imposing courtroom. We see places like that in this show. We see literally that place where Ahsoka's escaping
Yeah.
in this show. So that, but and again, Force sensitives and their relation to the Empire. Yeah, I think tonally, even if not necessarily story wise, just characters whose loyalty is ambiguous, and are they? Is their hatred is her hatred of the Jedi? Does that lead her to serve the Empire, or does it lead her to fight against the Empire? We don't know that either.
I still say she should join Saul's group. She'd fit right in.
That
They
would
like the
that
boss.
would work too. Yeah.
I mean, and we also know Inquisitors, they tend to like practically brainwash people, like
Yeah.
as we saw in Jedi Fallen Order. So like, I don't know, they could really use Varys's dark tendencies for it. But now that I know that her species can live a long time, heck, we could see her go up against Rey or something.
You never know.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me just think of one of this. I'll make sure I get all the Bad Batch goodness in this podcast because this show has been so good, man. It's been really strong. It's sort of funny how everyone kind of was against it at first in terms of being, oh, I don't want these 18 losers.
Yeah, no, it's good to have its time to shine. I think maybe with Celebration, it kind of got swept a little under the rug with how big that ending was, and also Mandalorian airing at the same time.
True.
Which
that episode, I know.
yeah. So just competing audiences a little bit, but yeah.
It was, yeah, but I mean, it's just been cool to see these characters grow. And again, I don't know how they're gonna end it. I mean, that's always the question you ask for every show. It doesn't matter what show it is. It could be Star Wars or non-Star Wars related. You're always like, how are they gonna end it? It's like, is it gonna be really sad? Is it gonna be bittersweet? Will they kind of let the batch kind of live? But there's nothing to say if they can't live, and they just
True.
Everyone's always feels like they kind of feel like they have to die on screen. Like like people just die off screen. They get old.
Yeah.
Hunter's gonna get old. They have their enhanced aging, so
most of the animated series have kind of ended on a bittersweet note. So like outside of Resistance, but I think Resistance probably was lined up for a third season. So
did Resistance end? Is the question.
Yeah, did Resistance end?
I mean, I just thinking about the Bad Batch. I don't think it makes sense to put Omega through that much loss.
That's true.
Yeah,
that is true. That is my one big thing that's going against like a clone rebellion that just ends in complete and total loss. I think that's definitely the one argument against it that I can understand. Like
I want her to come out as a hero and as someone who, because loss and that kind of level of scale of loss and grief can turn you. I mean, I think Varys to some extent is like that, but that everyone's gone and let you down. Vader is the number one example of that.
Yeah.
And so I don't. It would make Omega's heroism a bit less believable if she experienced that much of all her brothers going away and not all her family dying, as opposed to, you kind of see the wounded picking up the pieces hero, but I don't think that's where she's going. She's a lot brighter.
I do agree with that.
Brighter light than that. So
yeah, I do agree with that. And there was someone I saw online, I forgot who, but they said the possibility of, it would be cool if once the Bad Batch ends, we have a Rex series where maybe that goes more into the Clone Rebellion. Then, so once again, another kind of successor, like Clone Wars successor, Bad Batch successor. Then we have a Rex TV show. I'm of two minds of that. Like I just want to get more variety outside of Clone Wars era TV shows, but it would be interesting. I think that would be the place to have something more along the lines of an ending that's more complicated is with Rex, because we have to see how it ends up, where he's stranded alone on a planet of
with Gregor and Wolf, at least.
Gregor and Wolf, and and fishing for giant whatever the heck those things are.
It's I don't know, because I feel like they're setting that up so much in this show. It just feels weird to like, we're gonna deal with that another show too.
There's gonna be the confrontation. There's gonna be the conflict. I just what are the stakes, and the use that the stakes in storytelling.
I do think maybe the win you give the batch really is destroy Mount Tantus. It's been this looming place for 3 seasons. Well, a season and an episode, because since it was introduced at the end of season 1. But it's been this looming place. And I think kind of where it's the evil fortress, as you will. I think destroying that, even if it doesn't ultimately like not the destruction of the Empire, is kind of the blow that you give the bad guy. Like, this is our personal win. This is where all of the pain of our people has been in this place. Just destroying it, that's enough for now. We're not gonna dethrone Palpatine, but we can do this. This is our personal victory.
And then it comes back in Dave Filoni's movie, probably Heir to the Empire.
as a destroyed place, but still there.
Yeah, maybe. Fun times.
But yeah, that's all I got really.
Yeah.
The Bad Batch season 2, I really loved it. It was so good.
I loved it. It
I
was awesome.
can't wait for season 3. I'm curious when season 3 will come out. My guess sometime 2024.
They did say
Yeah.
2024. A little
Okay.
disappointed, but
Yeah.
it makes sense.
That's right. There's so much Star Wars until then.
There's
right?
a lot of
Yeah.
Star Wars. We're even getting more Star Wars animation, so
True.
it's good.
I got visions.
Visions, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder when. Maybe February or March.
Yeah, you can see early 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
probably.
we got yeah. I guess we got it late 2022.
We'll probably see a trailer sometimes late this year.
Yeah.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I heard the trailer actually that they showed. Like, it wasn't like a trailer. It's like a little tease.
It's like
Yeah.
less than a
It's a
minute
video.
or something.
Yeah.
Cool beans.
But yeah, that's it. That is the show.
Mhm.
Thank you, Omar,
Yeah.
for joining us.
Yeah, it was.
I'll go in there. Yeah. So yeah, thanks. Good point to wrap the video. Thanks for joining us and everyone watching as well on the Underworld YouTube channel, Underworld Facebook, Underworld Twitter, Iron Canon Twitch, Iron Canon Twitter. Let us know what you thought of our conversation tonight. What you thought of Bad Batch season 2? What you're hoping for in Bad Batch season 3? The comments below and all those channels are open. Let us know. Also, of course, on Twitter and Instagram at Iron Cannon Pod. Please do give this video a like and a share. Subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to those social feeds if you haven't done so already. Joel, where can they find you on the internet?
You can you can find me at JID 2021. Again, JID 2021 on the Twitters. You can also find me on the Star Wars Underworld Discord, which we run. Again, we are having a game night, not this Friday, but the next Friday. So vote now for the game you want to play. It's between Fall Guys, Fortnite, and Apex.
Yes.
Yeah. And of course, you can also follow us at the Ion Cannon Pod, where Matthew and I both sometimes post threads about stuff we're excited about.
And Omar, thanks again for joining us. Always great insights, and let us know where people can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a pleasure. I love being on this podcast. And yeah, my name is Omar the Negotiator. You could find me at the Negotiator95 on both Twitter and TikTok. And you can find me on YouTube as well at the Negotiator. Just at the Negotiator.
So you're cooking up a lot of good stuff there. You can find me on Twitter at NEUG485. I was talking about soccer, talking about different things. Instagram, MNEUG1138, and of course, Tractor Beam, Tractor Beam on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Of course, check out the flagship, the SWU at the SWU, and for all more in depth celebration news. And I'm sure they're going to talk about it loads on Thursday on the flagship as well. So definitely great episode, great conversation. Next week, we're going to do another look back at something that has ended recently, the Hidden Empire comic book arc, as well as probably look back on the whole Crimson Reign saga. I'll be getting a guest in for that as well. But until then, Joel and Omar, let's blow this thing and head home.